Welcome to another episode of When the Cleats Come Off podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Burkhart, and I have the privilege of making my very first interview for the podcast be one of my great coaching friends and mentors, JT Gasso. JT is currently the offensive and outfield coach at Oklahoma University. He has 4 Big 12 season titles, 2 Big 12 tournament titles, and 2 national championships in 2016 and 2017. It is now, I believe, your 6th year at Oklahoma. If we count last season, that's kind of, COVID makes it confusing, but I am honored to have JT as my first guest on the podcast. JT, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me on.
This is going to be so much fun. What I respect most about you is the fact that when I was a young athlete at Purdue and you were an assistant coach for me, it was so amazing having a coach that was always willing to learn more about yourself and how to make us better. And just having that mentality of always wanting to know more was just, it fed into me in ways that you probably don't even realize, but I loved it. And so if you could share with everybody just a little bit of your coaching journey from the very beginning to the end, I'm going to give the floor to you to kind of share what your journey has been to become the coach that you are now at Oklahoma.
Yeah, so for my coaching journey, I think, like, at least for me, it's kind of what shaped me is growing up. I wasn't really like a baseball kid, and it was funny just kind of going back and forth with my friends. They're just like shocked. They're like, how could you not, like, we played with you, you did all these things, like, how you're not a baseball kid? But I wasn't. I couldn't sit and watch baseball games. I was a huge Dodger fan, loved watching them play, but growing up, it was all about OU softball. And it was, okay, I know everyone's name, everyone's number, where they're from, their position, blah, blah, blah. I know, like, I can still remember old opponents in the Big 12, and so I was a huge OU softball fan, but also I love basketball and football. Baseball was like not really a thing. So growing up, going through in high school, got into baseball. I figured, okay, 5'8", little guy like that probably doesn't have 5'8", 5'9", 5'10" with cleats, I would say. But doesn't really have a shot in any of the other sports, so I started to focus more on baseball, started to get into it, loved it, and then I got an opportunity to go play at Eastern Oklahoma State College in Wilburton, Oklahoma, tiny school in Eastern Oklahoma. And it was easily the best sports experience I've ever had in my entire life, just because I grew up, I learned what hard work was, I learned the game, I learned strategy, how to train, like all these cool things. And what's interesting is my then coach is now the assistant at Florida, Eric Thomas, and pretty cool to have that connection back into the sport. But then, so from there, I went to East Central University, which is a D2 school in Ada. So my playing experience wasn't like a glitz and glamour. Like, we'd be lucky if we had like 5-6 people in the stands, and but it was cool because it kind of shaped me into, you're very grateful for the things you had. Like, we would go crazy if we got like dry fit shirts, and they weren't even like Nike or like name brand. They were like A4s, and yeah, it was a huge thing when we got those. So anyway, after I had done playing, I didn't really have any opportunities in baseball. Just kind of backtracking from there. I did a lot of camps during the summer when I was in college. So OU softball camps, UCLA, LSU, and I did some like high school, like local third-party organization stuff. But it was more at the time, it was like, okay, I really need to make some money. I don't have a lot. I need to pay rent. I need to pay for gas, do all these things. So I was really putting my foot in the door and kind of cementing that softball mind without really even knowing that I was doing it. So, fast forward, I got done playing. There was a couple, baseball opportunities, but I just kept getting drawn more to softball. And, my mom at the time was like, look, like, you grew up in this program, you already know the expectations. I think you'd be really good, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, whatever, cool, this is legit. You get, you get all these things, grad school paid for, whatever. So I was like, yeah, I'm in. So from there, I went to be a GA at OU, and I was really spoiled because my first 2 years, or my only 2 years, it was World Series final, national championship. I was like, oh yeah, that's what you're supposed to do everywhere and whatnot. So I got really, really spoiled in that setting, and then from there, Kim Schutte gave me the opportunity at Purdue, which is where I think you were a junior at the time, and got to spend 1 year in West Lafayette, loved it. And then Jackie Joseph at Michigan State called, and it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. Got to be recruiting coordinator, hitting coach, manage the defense. But I think what was really cool was my then fiance, Andrea Harrison at the time, we got to coach together. And that was huge. That was one of the best coaching experiences I've had, just because I really got to test, really push myself and test, if the information that I was getting or giving was right. And you can see what works, what doesn't work. And our record really didn't show it. I think we're 19 and 30 something or 20 something. I don't really know, but I really loved getting to work with those girls, just because they really bought in. And we improved from the year before, which is really all you can ask for. And got to Stephanie Sanders, who's now at Penn. Oh, she is Penn State.
I'm so excited for her.
Work with a lot of other really successful people there. So then from there, I got hired. It was crazy. I was getting ready to go out to Colorado, and my mom calls and she's like, "Hey, the job's open. I want to interview you for it." I was like, stomach drops, and you're like, I'm not ready, or all these kind of things. And then, long story short, we accepted the job. Came in 2016. And won. That was crazy. 2017, we did it again. 2018, World Series, and then 2019 World Series final. And that 2019 team was really not like the other teams weren't fun. That 2019 team was really cool because, Sid Romero, Shea Knighton, Fale Aviu, Reagan Rogers, Kylie Lumberg, all of them were freshmen when I was a freshman at OU. Almost you think about it, I'm first year coach at OU, first year coach we were buying a house, we're going to get married. Andre and I were going to get married. We're doing all these things. So we all came in new, and then we just went through it together. So that was my first starting class. And that year was fun. And then, last year got cut short, and here we are today sitting down with you. So
man. What a journey. You have to be able to, one thing that you said that I wanted to unpack is when you got the call from your mom to interview and you were saying you're not ready. Are we ever really ready? For that next step?
So it's so funny you say that, because that was the literal exact quote that, I said to Andrea. I was like, you're never really ready. You just do it. And then you figure it out kind of from where you're at. So it's, people and kind of everything, kids oh, am I ready to drive? No, you're not ready to drive. That's why insurance rates are so high. But you just do it and you figure it out. And same thing with, work and relationships and just kind of everything. And so, that was the quote was you're never really ready, but you just do it.
Yeah. Straight up, this podcast, was I ready to launch one? I told you before we even recorded, this is my first interview. I'm probably going to screw up, but you know what? We need interviews, and there's no better person right now to start it than you. But that's exactly what my mindset was when I started this podcast. I have no idea how it's going to happen, but it's going to, because it's needed. And I think that's a really cool testament and a big lesson that anybody can learn from, whether you're just learning the game or you're a coach or a parent in the game. So I think that's a really, really awesome lesson that we can all learn from your story. Another little tidbit I want to throw in there, Andrea was not just a softball player. She was a 2-time All-American from one of the best organizations in the country, UCLA. So you have to tell me.
Yeah, she has the juice in the family. Like, she's got it. Like, her name holds some weight. So it's pretty funny because yeah, when it comes to like athleticism, it's not me, it's her. Like, when the kids go to hit, I'm like, hey, go to your mom. Like, you guys can go over there with her.
But you're the hitting coach at Oklahoma. I think that's just the funniest thing ever. So one thing I want to talk about with you is hitting, because you were not my hitting coach in college. You did not have the reins, but I feel like when it came down to confidence in myself, when I started really becoming the hitter that I became, it really kind of sparked with you. And I'm not just saying this because I'm interviewing you right now. I remember when we would do extra BP and you would throw to me all the time. You were not afraid to call me out when I'm doing something. And I think previously it was kind of just like, oh, figure it out on your own. But you being here, and especially, I mean, Jay and Kim, they did a great job of helping me mold me as well. But you never were afraid to give me feedback. And I think as an athlete, that was probably my favorite thing about you. And I will not forget, there was one hitting session that we had. You probably have no recollection of this at all. But at the end of a practice, I think we just hit off of like live pitching. So you were throwing, somebody else was throwing, and I was on your front toss and your pitching. And afterwards, Jay was like, so JT, who was your favorite hitter today and why? And like, you just like called out my name, but like we had like that connection of where like, yeah, I kicked ass that day. I totally did not mean to, we're going to have to bleep that out because I did not mean to say that. But it was just like you and I working together and you calling out great cues for me. It really helped me decide and make great decisions in the box. And I really attest a lot of my greatness in the box eventually to how much you believed in me and how much you were willing to kind of call me out when I needed it or give me the right cues. So I'm curious. So with hitters that you're working with right now at Oklahoma, first question I wanted to ask is, when you get these hitters, when they come in as freshmen, are you doing much to mold their swing, or are you really just helping create, better versions of what they already have?
Yeah. So it's so funny. We just got done testing, and so basically what we're doing is, like, right now we just started practice last week, and we got a bunch of stuff. We got, the movement profiles. We got their exit speeds on different speeds, how they perform, and all these things. So we're basically going to go to our next phase, which is just kind of like build the engine a little bit. So more of like building like your rotational power and trying to sequence right and trying to do all these things. So I say that because I think that it's not me who should be molding the hitters. The hitters should be molding themselves. So if there's things that are happening, then just basic problem solving is you're going to figure out a solution to it. And there's some things that we'll talk about, like, hey, here's how you want to initiate your swing, or, we'll talk some mechanical things like that. And, one of the things that always stood out to me was you can't tell somebody to do something that they can't physically do, because then you're just going to make them more frustrated. So figuring out what people can physically do and can't do. And so there's some people that come in with what I would think are like, it's not working for them. And so it's not up to me to figure that out. It's up to them to figure that out. So we won't really make changes until they say, hey, this isn't working. What can I do different? So like, we have a athlete right now who, she came in, she has a big step. Oh, she has like, a step in the bucket, a lot of people would say, right? But her freshman year, she's All-American. So it's like, my biggest thing is I don't want to take something away from someone that might make them successful and comfortable. And so, she was able to maintain a good stretch. Her direction was good. She's doing all these things that were really good. She's still able to hit it. And everyone's like, well, what about the outside pitch? And sure enough, she just figured it out. She figured out how to do it. So when people come in, we don't do like, okay, everything you do sucks. Let's figure it out. Let's start all over. It's let's make what you do better and build you from there. So changes that they make might come from themselves, or I might like just suggest something, but it doesn't ever stick unless it comes from them or they want it to stick, if that makes sense.
That's amazing. And it really helps athletes find ownership in their own swing as well. I think when people doubt themselves at the box, it's because, you know, they're given all these cues or these things to think about when really they should just figure it out on their own and have that freedom. And that's where confidence comes from in the box, I feel like.
Yeah.
And you have some of the most confident hitters in the world. Straight up.
Well, you would think that sometimes you gotta, it's just all about, sometimes it's about the outward like expression of it, you know, sometimes they're just not really feeling confident, but it's just, you gotta just fake it till you make it type of thing. So,
yeah. So what do you cue? Let's say the offense in a game is kind of cold. Are there things that you say as their coach to help them get out of the funk, or do you make them figure it out on their own?
So let's say that we always go into a game with a game plan, or at least knowing what somebody's able to do. And within the first inning, we should know if our game plan fits to what's happening or if we need to adjust it. So anything that, you know, we'll say to the team is more hitting on like the tactical piece, meaning like the in-game, how are you going to beat who you're facing? There might be some individual people that I'm like, hey, you're just missing, here's what you got to do, you know, or some things like that. But once you get into the game, if a mechanical cue or like a technical cue, you can't there's no way that you can compete while still trying to hold on to those pieces. Because I think that's a big part of the game, at least that we see when kids come in, is that competition part is totally gone when they step into the box. And it's like, okay, I want to want my elbow here. I need this. I want my barrel. I'm like, just freaking hit. And if you put the work in on the back end, the front end, then what you're going to see happen in a game is just going to your swing is like reflexive. It just happens, and you can just do it how you're training it to happen.
I love that. So do you have athletes who, let's say, have a terrible performance in a weekend or in a game that come up to you and they say, JT, I need to figure this out, and they just ask you to come to the cage and do some extra work?
Yeah. So I always will ask them, like, you know, were you swinging at good pitches? And not even necessarily like strikes. Some people, like Sid Romero, is a really good bad ball hitter. Like people would dive balls and she'd go like this and hit them out. Right. So be like, did you swing? Were you hitting at pitches that you thought you could hit? Or was your game plan on? So kind of what we talk about is there's like three things that we really cue in on, and it's your like approach. So, I guess your game plan. So if you're watching a pitcher and you're seeing what they're doing, and are you picking up tendencies? Are you picking up how the ball's moving? You picking up how they're pitching you, right? So is your game plan on? Are you right in what they're doing? Can you kind of almost predict what they're doing? Is your approach right? Meaning like, well, how are you going to attack your game plan? So like if someone throws a drop ball and I feel like I need to get under it, or I need to change my posture. It's like, is your approach right? And then mentally, are you in the right space? So what we tell them was like those three things, like your mentality, your approach, and your game plan. If you have all three of those, you're in a pretty good space. And you're going to, even if you don't get a hit in 4 at-bats, you were picking up something or you were having success that was helping somebody else. So if those three things aren't there, then it's like, hey, I keep missing, and somebody's like, I keep missing rise balls or change ups or whatever. Then we can go in and say, okay, let's look and see, like, are you able to keep your load are you loading in the right places? Are you maintaining a good stretch? So a lot of times they can figure that on their own, but there are times when they'll say like, hey, I'm missing this. Can you help me on this? Or I feel like I'm doing this, but I'm not. So it's just a lot of educating, and that's what we try and do in the fall is we try and give them the information to where we come in the spring. They know they can pinpoint exactly what it is that they need to work on.
That's awesome. And so every year it's pretty much the same game plan. You teach them in the fall and then you let them just do their thing in the spring. So when it comes to your training, and I guess I should ask, which part, let's just say it's the fall because that's where they're doing most of the work. But when you are training, is it more drill based? Is it more just getting the reps in? What are you spending the most time on in the fall?
Yeah. So kind of like where we're at right now, we talked about like building that engine, right? So we're going to be doing more of like workouts just because of the time that we have. We only have 4 hours a week to work with them.
Yeah.
So if I can give them the information and saying like, okay, this is what we're looking for, and everyone's going to be a little bit different. Everyone will feel a little bit different, but when you're looking, this is what you're trying to look at, and this is what you want to feel. And these are the body parts that you want to feel it, right? So like if I turn and I can feel that stretch going through my core and my shoulder, right? So we'll do a lot of things that are like testing that in the sense of, okay, we want you to really initiate with your hips right now. Okay, let's feel where you're tight, and then we're just rolling through it. So like I was thinking this next week, it's so funny you asked this question because I've been thinking about this for like the past couple of days. And it's going to be like, okay, we're going to do a lot of like kind of like overspeed where they're going to be doing like getting some momentum. It's like Happy Gilmore drills and with a lighter bat and really, or, those like swing sticks, you remember, like you hold them out, your parents will hold them out and then
yes.
you hit it, and then they go with it and they bring it back and hold it right over the middle.
Yes.
So we'll take some of those and do like Happy Gilmore swings into a bag, like a punching bag, and it just creates some. And we just like hit it as hard as you can, and we just show them. And sometimes they'll self-organize on their own, and then we'll be doing some stuff with the bat and some movement things. But then it's like, okay, test it on a live pitch. So, I mean, this session might last like, 30 minutes. And then we're adding crowd noise. I'm going to add some big crowd noise into it, or maybe something that could be distracting. So not only are we training like the physical part of it, but we want to train the mental part of it. Like, can you focus? And hey, if you're not getting the direction right, or you're not doing these drills right, and you're not listening to what's happening, then you're going to be in like a timeout or something, or you have something to do. So my big thing is trying to train multiple like aspects of it in a tiny amount of time that we have. So I guess to answer your question, it's not necessarily like we're going to spend 30 minutes doing like this one drill and then we'll move on. We're going to set up like we'll have 2 cages. So with COVID, we're only allowed 8 people in the indoor. So we'll have 4 people inside working on 2 cages. And it's like, all right, here's what this is going to look like. Here's the directions. Now do it. And then they start to figure it out on their own. And then once we start to get in the spring, it's all about training and getting a feel for what you're going to face, and then addressing deficiencies that you might have.
So like, if you're facing a rise ball pitcher, you'll do a lot of rise ball work that week, things like that.
Exactly. And if there's some things like, hey, as a team, we're struggling with hitting off speed, then we might, hit that as well. But a lot of it comes from the players, because they know how they're feeling. They know what they want to feel. They know what they need to work on. So we try and give them that information in the fall. So come spring, there's not a lot of guesswork. It's like, hey, I know that you want to work on this, but can we mix this in too? oh, we're just feeling this as a team, or, whatever. So yeah, a lot of like more like challenges in the fall to kind of get them going and thinking in that and self-organizing in that direction. And then come the spring, it's more geared towards what we're trying to accomplish. So
I love that as a staff, you guys are spending the time to listen to what the girls want. I think that's so crucial and so important for any coaches at any level. It's if an athlete feels like her drop step is bad, I'm just thinking about outfield, then we need to address that. And she's probably not the only one feeling that. Same thing with hitting. If the hitters feel like, hey, this, curveball, for some reason, we're not attacking it the way we know we can we spend time on it? And you as a coaching staff are like, okay, like let's put that into our practice plan. That's amazing. That's amazing because, again, it's really giving the ownership to the athlete over, how are they going to be able to be confident in the box? Oh, knowing that they put in the work on the thing that they know they needed help with, that's going to be confidence in itself. One other thing I wanted to backpack from what you said was the fact that you were working on, when you were talking about building the engine and working on the crowd noise and implementing the mental game with the physical game at the same time. That's, I think, an athlete's dream, knowing that you don't even think you're working on the mental game, but you are. Are there any other mental game strategies that in a practice you'll do other than adding crowd noise that are kind of fun that people can maybe pick up on and start doing?
Yeah. So over the COVID break, we did a lot of kind of researching and just trying to pick up things that were going to help us improve. And I spent a lot of time looking at like the brain. And if you go on YouTube, look at Andrew Huberman. He's a neuroscientist at Stanford. I mean, it's amazing. And just working on controlling your breath in very adverse situations is like you think about that. I would think of that as being like a mental training tool. So I saw a drill. It's not a drill, but it's like you throw somebody in an ice bath and they're in there, and when you're in there, you're like, oh, but if you can control your breath in that setting, then you're like, now you can control it in a lot of different settings. And so he works with, some military personnel and athletes and, all these things. So I'm not saying we're dunking our girls in ice baths or whatever, but I'm just saying like you can put them in a very adverse situation and just work on like, hey, control your breath. So, hey, do 50 jump ropes, and now let's reel it in. Let's control our breath. Or working on, okay, here's the task. Follow these directions while trying to distract them with things. So you work on that focus piece, because I talk a lot about how your focus can be very like, you think of like people's game face, right? Like you think of LeBron has a game face, Kobe has a game face, different pitchers. Like I remember Andy Pettit, his glove was up at his eyes, but they're talking about how when you're locked in like that, it's a brain state, right? Like your brain is like, your eyes are literally brain. Your eyes aren't your eyes, your brain. That's why you can tell a lot of stuff from people's eyes, because it's literally directed in their brain. Like this is totally on a different level. So I'm probably like ruining your podcast right now.
No, I love it. I love it because I thought I was really cool and, wore eye black and thought that gave me an edge and everything.
No,
but
not just kidding. No,
I joke about it because, I just feel a certain way when I wear it, and I want to give that game face look when I have it on. And yes, I love to joke. I love to have fun, but like when I'm in the box, there's no messing with my game face. Like I need to intimidate. I need to at least pull off this thought that I'm actually awesome in order to do well. But it's amazing that that's something that you said, Andrew Huberman, he taught you. Like it's a correlation of.
It's not like I'm like reached out to him like, hey.
Oh, right. I know. You studied it. And that's, again, a testament to you're always learning new things. But, first person that I think of is Kat Osterman. Like she hides herself behind her glove, and it is the most fierce eye glare you can ever imagine. And actually hitting against her when I played in the pro league, I was so distracted by that I didn't even focus on myself my first at bat against her.
Right.
But it's a really powerful tool. And
Yeah.
that's so interesting that you can throw that in there, and also controlling your breath. It's as easy as doing 50 jumping jacks or 50 jump ropes and then going to have to execute something. It's
Yeah.
as easy as that. That's some of my favorite work that I love to do with some of my athletes now. And it's easy mental preparation, but also they have no idea you're working on the mental game at all, which I think
Right.
is
And one thing that, I mean, we wouldn't try it here, but I was always wondering, like, what it would be like to train in the rain, like literally, like have it be raining, and then like, oh, but like there's this sense of like lock in that you gotta do when that's happening too. So to me, the one thing that I really picked up on was like the distracting part and trying to get away from like a panoramic. So you think of people who are like, they can look and see who's in the crowd and see who's doing this, or like, oh, like when your vision gets like panoramic like that, usually it's like eyes wide, and you can see who are scared in those situations, right? But then the people whose eyes like narrow in those game faces, and that's, I think, if we're saying like, oh, that's important, get your game face, if you've never practiced it before, you can't just expect it just to like show up if somebody can't do it, you know?
right. That's so good. It's like the tunnel vision. Sometimes when I work with athletes on a big open field for the first time after, doing some cage work, they get outside themselves and they start popping up like crazy and they wonder what's going on. And it's really the mental focus of pretend like you're still in a cage. Pretend like you're still trying to drive it up the middle or get inside the ball. That's the only way you're going to be able to hit productively from going from cage mindset to the field. It's you still have to have that focus on, what is it, that job that you're trying to execute, without trying to get distracted by the fact that there's now 215 fences and all these other things. That's really awesome. I love that. So I was curious when I was writing up questions to ask you. One of my favorite things that you did for us was we put up QABs in the dugout. So we would track our quality at bats. Can you describe to the audience what a QAB is and why you track it, or you like to track
Okay, so it's funny because that was one of the things that I just did like on my own. It's very subjective, in my opinion, what it was. But my thing is, and it all came back to when I was a GA. Steve Springer, his CDs were huge. They were just starting to blow up. And one of the things he's like, quality at bats win, hit the ball hard, you win, all those things. So at OU, I started to track like, okay, how many hard hits does it take to, win a game or, whatever. So at OU, with the type of pitching that we had with Kaylani on the mound, it was like, okay, if we had 5 hard hit balls, we're going to win the game. And it's crazy if you think about it, like 5 hard hit balls or in quality stop, whatever. And then you think we didn't have ball tracking, like we didn't have radars or nothing like that. So it was very subjective. What I thought was a hard hit ball would count. So, at Purdue, what we would do when I just kind of did it on my own and kind of kept it for my own, like continued it. So my biggest thing is, okay, if we're talking about things that you can control, right? Batting average is not one of them. You can't control whether or not you get hits. You can't control that whether, after you hit the ball, you can't control really what happens. So my biggest things were, okay, you can control what pitch you swing at, how hard you swing, and just like your overall like attentiveness to what's happening. So I would track like, okay, what are some things that would exemplify that? So hard hit ball, a walk, a hit by pitch, a hit. Like let's say I don't hit the ball hard and it drops or a flare or whatever. I'd count it. And so basically what I'm trying to do is add way more positives to an offensive outcome than negatives. Meaning like, okay, here are all the things that you can do, and the only bad things are getting out or striking out or whatever. So anyway, to us, we define a quality at bat, and this is all outcome based, right? So it's a walk, a hit by pitch, executing off of our card or our play. So that might be like a hit and run or run and hit or, whatever. A sack bunt, a bump for a hit. I think I said hard hit ball, but basically anything that's good that gets you on first base or helps, your team out. And what's so funny was, we're trying to get it all process oriented. So, okay, if we add all these really good outcomes, then maybe you'll buy into the process. In 2016, that's literally all it was like hard hit balls, and we didn't care where they went. So what was crazy was our team average was like at one point 360 or 370. Whoa,
that's insane.
But our home runs were like kind of like, I think, top 20 in the country or, something like that. And so when you look at like the overall run production as to years that we had high home runs to 2016, where it was like kind of medium to high, maybe like a little above average. I think I forget how many we had that year, but the run production is the same. So if the run production is the same, then, you must be, there's many different ways to score runs. So tracking the quality at bats really helps people in there and come away with positives from their at bats. Like, hey, I hit that ball hard. It just got caught. Oh, well. Or, man, that was a great bunt. Sack bunt. I get to first base, throw me out. Awesome. I did a really good job. So just adding more positive outcomes to at bats and then tracking that. Okay, how many quality at bats does it take to win a game, or hard hit balls, or whatever. But yeah, that was really big for me early on, tracking that, because it really like showed, like, everyone says, oh, trust the process, but it's like, what is the process? Like, that's such like a buzzword, like trust the process. Well, what is it? And it's so subjective for everyone. Like, well, the process is, getting hits. Like, to me, it's not. Everyone might be a little different. To me, it's not. So I think when we start tracking that and having people really like excel and take things from that, helped our hitters a lot.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite things. I think going up to the box knowing, hey, just hit it hard, or quality at bat. If I can remind myself to do that, I'm in a much easier space. But if I'm putting pressure on myself to try to execute or try to go for an outcome, it never works. And one thing that I notice a lot, especially with parents and even coaches, they think so much outcome based that it takes away from the amount of positives that are actually happening. And I truly believe that an athlete is going to pick up on that if a parent or a coach is so outcome based on, hey, you went 0 for 4, but wait, what if you just hit 4 line drives to the center fielder? Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with hitting the ball hard 4 times. So being able to say you went 4 for 4 in quality at bats, it's so uplifting for a hitter to be able to say, did I do all the things that I wanted to do? Did I execute my plan? Did I hit the ball hard? Yes. Was I out? Well, yeah, someone got in the way. Well, you still won the battle. You still won. So I think we need to get away, as just a softball mentality wise, just in general, we need to get away from the fact that it's not about whether you got a hit or not. It's about whether you executed something for your team, or you executed your plan, or, you just hit the ball hard. There's so many more positives we can take away from that. And, playing a game that's mostly failure, being able to take away positives from even what some people would qualify as failure is legendary and epic. So I think that was one thing that you helped me realize when I was an athlete. It's not about whether I get a hit, it's whether I hit the ball hard.
Well, I want to add one more thing. I think it's about winning too. And I'm not saying like, oh, it's all, cutthroat, do or die, but adding an aspect into the game where you are prioritizing, winning. And if my whole team is locked in on that, then I'm gonna really, my urgency and focus goes way up, and I'm really focusing on things that are gonna help me win. And I was watching, like, USA Softball put out a video of the 1992 or 94, I think it was 94 ASA championship, and it was crazy awesome. Like, Stacy Newman was like a junior, I think, junior. No, I think she was young. But anyway, point is, like, they were physically, like, the swings might not have looked right, or the fundamentals, or whatever. It was behind. Who cares? But the fact that they were, like, so, like, locked in on winning made it like, holy smokes, this was like the golden age of softball, because it was just purely about, like, playing. There's no one in the stands. They're playing at Hall of Fame, which was, I mean, it was still a great stadium, probably the best in the country at the time, but they had no side stands. It was all, grass hills. And I actually grew up going down those hills as a kid. But anyway, but they were just getting after it and competing. And I think some of that's gotten lost in the game, because it's, hey, what measurables can I hit? What's my exit speed? What's this? And I think there's a balance between them. Like, okay, you can't just, like, only focus about winning and then not training on top of that and hitting some measurables like exit speed and trying to develop and get better like that. But I think what's happened is it's all outcome based and very low winning, right? Very median or very low competition levels, meaning, like, we have 7 showcases and 7 showcase games, and we have practice games, and that's all great. But if you're not trying to win those games, then you just lose it. You lose it. And you think about how in college, when you're in those, when we're playing Indiana at the time, how emotionally, like, draining that is. Or when you're playing Michigan and how loaded their lineup was back then, and how, like, emotionally draining one game is, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine if you spread that out in 2 days, we're going to play 10 games. And you're not, and we know that you can be emotionally drained after, like, one game, then obviously something's not being prioritized in those settings. So I think winning, but, like, long story short, winning is, to me, is a big part of what we do, and try and, like, hey, you're training, but you're also competing at the same time.
Right. And I think as an athlete, it just makes decision making so much easier too.
Oh yeah.
Like, what bugs me so much. So I've been spending a little bit of time on TikTok just because I like to see what young athletes are doing, and they're all over it. And I cannot tell you how many TikToks are made where coach is calling a bunt signal and the athlete's like, screw that, I'm going for a home run. And it bugs me so much that athletes are, like, loving and sharing and, like, oh yeah, like, screw the bunt. And I'm like, if you want to win, you got to advance runners. And if you want to win, you have to sacrifice yourself. And so that mentality right now of just people being, selfish in their own stats, I'm like, that's not what it's about.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I think, just over time, that's just kind of become the priority of social media. And it's like, I take one picture and I see who can like it. I think social media can be a great tool, because I got a lot of things from it. But I think what's happening is we've become so obsessed with the self. And, one of the things that I think of, like, people say, well, hey, never bunt. And I'm thinking, like, if you are a good enough hitter, you won't need to bunt. And so some people they're kind of unrealistic about that. So, to the point of your TikTok, like, how many of those hitters would say, like, yeah, I don't need to bunt because I'm going to hit a bomb, right? Like, no coach is going to be like, okay, hey, I think you have a really good chance. Like, if you're hitting 500 or 400 and you have a slugging percentage in the thousands, the coach isn't going to bunt you, right? So being realistic on what kind of hitter you are, and then people thinking, like, well, yeah, I'm not that kind of hitter. Like, but you probably are. Like, you probably need to bunt that situation because you're going to get out. Like, just, this is the way the numbers work. So, like, there's people, and we kind of say the same thing with our team. Like, being a well-rounded athlete, being able to do anything. And, if Jocelyn Allo comes up, we're probably not going to bunt her. But if she's having a really bad day and we kind of can feel like, hey, her confidence maybe isn't there, and it's always there. She's always confident. But I mean, there's times where you got to be looking into like, okay, there are times where that might be necessary. And so, yeah, to go back to your point, I think the game and just society in general is really taking a priority of the individual and not necessarily things that are like bigger than yourself. And we're just talking about sports right now. So, but yeah, that's, I don't know. We see that happen a lot. Like kids don't know how to bunt. Kids don't know how to put the ball in play. Kids don't know how to go to all fields, oppo, pull side, or, hit a ground ball, line drive. That's what I tell some of our hitters is like, you should be able to do anything and everything you want, especially on front toss. Someone's front tossing you and I say, hey, pull a ball. You should know how to pull a ball or hit a ground ball, hit a line drive, hit a fly ball, hit an oppo. Okay, how do you do this? How do you do that? And so ones who can do that, I think, are really special athletes. But,
I agree. And I think so last week I did was it this week or last week? Oh no, it was last week. And by the time this airs, it won't be last week, but I did an entire podcast on versatility and how you need to be able to know how to, play other positions. Cause I don't know if you know this, but when I first got to Purdue, I was an outfielder only and had played a little bit of shortstop in high school, but knowing how to play other positions helps you respect other positions, but also that comes from what?
Would you stopper too?
Yeah, I was like everything. Well, Kim Marr, she wanted to create a full slapping lineup, which I thought was very interesting.
I didn't know that. I just remember you saying like, yeah, I slap, and Jason was like, no, you ain't slapping. Things like
I know. That's one of my favorite stories. It's like, wow, I actually started hitting home runs when I was calling myself a hitter. But yeah, that's another story for another day. But versatility is everything. I mean, from whether you're hitting to playing defense, it's so crucial to be able to help your lineup and do whatever it takes to win. Which I think a good segue would be talking about the championship mindset. So that hashtag is one of my favorites. I probably talk about it too much on my live shows whenever I do them every Monday. But it's such an amazing and fun just mentality. And, your program has adopted that and therefore has won many championships. And so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I only have 2 more questions for you. But that was definitely one that I could not walk away not asking because it's something that I'm curious. Like how did it come about? How does your team adopt that mentality, championship mindset?
Yeah. So in 2016, it was just all about like, okay, because Lauren and Shelby, and we had a great senior class, Lauren Chamberlain, Shelby Pinley, they just graduated. We had 8 freshmen, I think 6 sophomores at the time maybe, but over half our team are underclassmen. And so we had a great senior leadership in Katie Self, Aaron Miller, and they had won it their freshman year, but they didn't even really play. And so, we were watching, I think it was we were watching Russell Wilson and some of the mic'd up stuff. And so he was, you constantly see him like talking, and he's what a leader looks like. And I love when athletes are mic'd up because you get a real sense, not like college, because I think sometimes they know that they're mic'd up. And so they're like, oh, hey, what's for dinner later? Some dumb stuff like that. But, when they get like those pro athletes and they're like in those high competitive states, and you really get to see what leadership looks like, and seeing him encouraging people. But one of the things he would talk about is championship mindset. And so we ran with it, and it kind of evolved into some things, but it kind of there's a book, It Takes What It Takes, that we read, this summer. And one of the things that really stuck out was if you want to be great, you really don't have choices. You don't, like, you're going to do the things that you want that are going to make you successful. And that's, I think, really what championship mindset is about. It's not like this, it's not like this super secret 15-step plan that we, develop. It's kind of the same thing like the pyramid of success, where, like you make like John Wooden's pyramid of success. Like it's not really that hard. And that's what makes it hard, is because those decisions that you make each and every day are so easy, but it's just the way that we always want to take the easy route. Whereas when you make those really good choices and you have that championship mindset of always making the right choice and always doing those right things, that's what kind of propels you forward. And it's funny because, you might have some freshmen come in and they get the bracelet and they wear the shirt, like, oh, you had championship mindset, but you were late for class. And you're like, oh, but you don't work hard on your own. So it's like there'll be times where we're taking your bracelets away from you. You didn't earn it. So, I mean, I don't want to say like, yeah, we are the inventors of championship mindset. There's a lot of people in this world that have had championship mindset way before, we use it as our mantra. And there's a lot of people out there that have it. They just call it something else, or they, do something else with it. So yeah, that was just kind of our way to get people coming into OU to think like, hey, this is what you got to do. And that's the mindset that you're going to adopt. And it's every day. It's like a lifestyle. It's not just something that's like, cool, it's season, so I'm going to be a championship mindset state right now. It's like, no.
Yeah. And it's funny because so you got Kobe behind you. And to me, it kind of reminds me of just his Mamba mentality. That's like his version of championship mindset. It's you do whatever it takes to make the decisions that you may not want to make, but are crucial to becoming the best version of you. It just seems like something that, like you said, it's hard to adopt in our brain, but really it's just making the easy decision of getting out of your comfort zone and doing what you have to do versus what you want to do. That's awesome. I love that. I love that. It makes me want to run through a brick wall right now. And it makes me regret sitting on the couch watching probably 3 hours of TV yesterday that I probably should have been doing something else.
But I mean, to be honest, we're human though. Everyone's human. And I think that's the thing too, is like, we're not going to be perfect, but I think if you are actively striving to do it, then you're going to see, good results and whatnot. So,
yeah. Yeah, that's a good reminder. We are all human. We do spend too much time on our phones sometimes. I'm talking to myself. But that's so good. So I have one final question before I'm going to ask you 5 to thrive, like simple, easy questions. And this one has to be about, working for your mom, because I'm just curious about this. So Patty Gasso, absolute legend. Like working for your mom, it probably wasn't an idea that you had when maybe it was because you grew up watching her coach, but what's it like working for Patty Gasso, and what are maybe the top 2 things that you've learned from her, at least so far?
Well, off the bat, it's great. And the reason why it's great is because, it's you in anything you do, you want to have people that you can trust and people that are going to keep you on like the right path, right? So having that in the job is absolutely like 100% like so crucial, because I mean, I was fortunate enough to have people that, I could trust, and Jackie Joseph, Kim Schutte, Jace, like I could trust all those people that were there. And, but to have somebody as close as your family in those settings, because there's some settings where people just like blind interview and, okay, I'm really taking a chance on you. I really don't know you, but, and things just don't work out. But in the workplace, having someone that I can trust and can be candid with me is so huge. And I remember coming in 2012, it was like, okay, you're going to learn and this. And it was crazy because I kind of already knew the program standard just from being around, softball and the program, whatever. But in 2016, there was no like break-in period where there was like at Michigan State and Purdue. It was like we go in and like, okay, everything that is from this program. So there's no like really break and be like, we're just going to go. We got it. So it can be, like with anyone, when you're that candid and you can trust someone, you're going to have your battles, but they're not really even bad. It's like, hey, I want to do this drill. No, I want to do, and at the end of the day, I can't ever win anyway, because one, she's my mom, but two, she's my boss, right? So like, there's two giant strikes on me. So, but no, it's great. That's all I can really say. It's great. And then the two things that I've learned from her is the balance of, my work and family, and just work ethic, and just not letting people outwork you, and knowing that there's somebody out there that is striving for the goal or whatever it is that you want. So you're almost like, working against ghosts sometime, where it's like, okay, there's a hypothetical person out there that, wants to take your job. So you better be evolving, but I don't know. That's just kind of how I'm in that competitive mode, where I'm just trying to learn and stay ahead of it, so I can be well equipped. I want to be like well equipped to help our players out, not just like, hey, I'm going to be the hitting coach and I'm going to do this, and no, it's just, I really want to be there for our players. And I know that's something that our whole coaching staff, Coach Rocha, people don't realize too, she went to OU, and along with Coach Lombardi before that. So we're all on the same page of just trying to be the best resource that we can be for our athletes.
I love that. And she coached me in the pro league for a year, Coach Rocha.
Yeah, no, I
season.
saw your picture on Zoom. I totally forgot. Yeah,
I know. It's so funny how, like, just being in the game for as long as you've clearly been in it longer than me, but it is such a small world. Like, it's insane. It's insane how small this world is. And, going to help OU at 2 of your summer camps, I got to know so many people in that realm. And now some of those people have agreed to be on my podcast now. So it's just like, what is happening? What is happening? This is so cool. Okay, so I want to wrap up with asking you 5 quick questions. I want to like add the little bit of pressure, because I know we play sports, we need pressure, of trying to limit it to like 1 to 2 sentences per answer, just so you can just like say whatever's on your heart, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to call these questions 5 to Thrive. Okay. So we're going to end with that, and then we'll kind of just see where we go from there. You ready?
Got it.
Okay. First one. What's your favorite part about being a coach?
Going to the field every day.
Good. What's your favorite part about being a dad?
Favorite part about being a dad is being there for my kids.
Good one. 3, who was your biggest role model growing up?
Biggest role model growing up? My parents.
Those are mine. Good choice. 4, this might be hard. Take your time if you need to think about it. What's your favorite sports quote?
My favorite sports quote?
Yeah. Just the first one that comes to mind.
Be better. That's my favorite. Just because with everything, it's just be better.
Is that like, did it come from someone's mouth to make you love it, or?
So it was just something like in junior college that people would just be better. And it was like, you can't, if you get hit with a be better, there's literally nothing you can say. There's not one thing you could ever say. And it's like,
that's so true. I love that. So now you're probably saying it like once a week to your athletes, or once a day.
They make fun of me sometimes, like, because you just run out of words to say, and you're like, just be better. And then that's just like your nail in the coffin, like
mic drop.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, final question. What's one legacy you want to leave on your children?
On my children?
Yeah.
Wow. Loving people, and just loving people, and that's really all
I love it.
God-fearing kids and loving people. That's it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, JT, for being on the podcast. It was an honor having you as my first interviewee. I think that's the proper term. I'm not quite sure. But this was so much fun, and maybe we'll get to do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right.